Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny,
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
And hello. Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson.
And hope you're having a great Saturday out there. Speaking of Saturdays, I know September 24th of here, 2022. So I was going to say of this month, September of this month. Yeah. Okay. Off to a rockin' start. Is National Ghost Hunting Day. Now, I don't love that term. We don't love that term.
No, we do not.
Ghost hunting. Although it has some history. It does go back.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it, and was it a Lon Chaney or Bela Lugosi movie?
Bela Lugosi movie. It was from the 30s.
Yeah, and we're still curious about the origins of like the term ghost hunting. Mm-hmm. We don't like it because you don't hunt the ghosts, and that just there's an insinuation there. But we all kind of use the term, so we're used to it. It's kind of like the data evidence thing and all that. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do, right? Anyways, National Ghost Hunting Day is the Saturday, the 24th of September. And there's a national ghost hunting event that goes across the country, world's largest ghost hunt.
Yes. And
our guest today is going to be part of that, hosting at the Poplar Mansion in Salisbury, Maryland, I believe it is, which is our photo in the background that you might have saw there will become the thumbnail for the show. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and bring him right on, and we can get right to things. He is a paranormal investigator. His name is Joshua Chairs, by the way. I just don't have it together today, Chris.
Yes, you do. Yes,
what's going on? I don't know. He's a paranormal investigator, writer, researcher, a musician, a publicist. He got interested in the supernatural at an early age while watching Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. His interest in the supernatural peaked in 2002 when he had the opportunity to investigate the General Wayne Inn in Marion Station, Pennsylvania. Chairs is a 2008 graduate of the Westchester University and a future graduate student majoring in business administration. Way to go, man. In 2014, Chairs co-founded the Summer Wind Restoration Society along with Wisconsin paranormal investigator Craig Niebring. Their goal was to use the original blueprints of the Summer Wind Mansion. I apologize, I don't have my glasses with me. To restore, rebuild, and relaunch the mansion as a museum with its haunted history. Summer Wind is known to be the most haunted location in Wisconsin, so we'll definitely talk about that. In 2020, Chairs founded the Phantom Detectives team, which we're definitely going to get into to help people who are going through paranormal experiences. Using the Paranormal Research Society blueprint, Chairs is hoping to build a ton of renowned paranormal investigators and is dedicated to helping people that are going through these experiences. Chairs has investigated the Sanderson Museum, Selma Mansion, Mill of Selma, White Chimneys, and the General Wayne Inn in Fort Mifflin. Penhurst as well, which we were talking about Thursday with Joe Rioni, kind of on our bucket list. Smyra Museum, and as well as Gettysburg. Let's bring him right on. Enough with this banter. He can tell us about it. Hey, Josh, how are you doing?
Good. Hello. How are you? Hello to your listening audience. And I am looking forward to speaking to you guys with any questions from your end and from your listeners' end.
Excellent. I see Ken Allen is out there.
Yes, he is.
We love you too, Ken. And I gotta talk to you later, actually.
Yes.
What is going on? All right. So tell us a bit about how you got involved. I know you mentioned that you were watching Unsolved Mysteries and you liked it. And certainly was a way that a lot of us get in there is through TV or books or media, whatever. What did you have any paranormal experiences growing up?
Not really per se. I was really interested in reading a lot of books by Dr. Hans Holzer, who basically was America's first ghost hunter. Very good friends with Alexandria, Dave Schrader, Cindy Kaza, and Shane Pittman. In 1988, when I was a 4-year-old kid, I watched Unsolved Mysteries, much like any kid that was interested in topics that were that defies science. So I went ahead and watched the episode called The General Wayne Inn and Marion Station, Pennsylvania. And the General Wayne Inn is an old coaching inn. It dates back to 1704. It was called the Wayside and Steepers Inn, and of course being renamed after Revolutionary War hero Major General Anthony Wayne in 1794 after some of his heroic battles serving alongside George Washington. And famous dignitaries such as Ben Franklin, of course, Washington, Edgar Allan Poe was there, Marquis de Lafayette, and many other people. And of course, Hessian soldiers were there. So there was the story about this inn. And during the episode, basically, Robert Stack highlighted Micheline Mayer, who was one of my early mentors in the field. She's since passed away. Basically, actually did an episode on Unsolved Mysteries there. So when they're talking about this inn, they're talking about some of the paranormal activity that's associated with it. And some of those that's associated with it includes like Hessian soldiers being seen on steps, also in the basement area. There's also reports of seeing, basically different sounds. And like, of course, like with some of the, like the TV, when patrons would be watching the TV in the late 80s when it was a bar, the TV would rotate 360 degrees and then would rotate counterclockwise. And then, attendants that were working at the restaurant back in the late 80s, the car would be running completely on by itself, and there was no keys in it. There was no lights or no batteries from some of the reports.
Whoa!
Wow!
Did anybody ever catch that, like on if it's the 80s, on a camcorder or anything like that?
That is a good question, and I know it's supposedly part of the reports of the history of they call it the Inn of the 17 Ghosts. Now, like of course, in 2002. Before it became a Jewish synagogue, I actually had the opportunity to investigate with the local Philadelphia team at that time. And we were in the basement area and I was taking pictures, just taking standard pictures that you'll see on most, the 3-picture rule that I learned from, different societies. And basically one of the pictures had really weird green and yellow streaks of light in it. And so when I went back to take it back to some different film companies, they said they have no reasonable explanations why that happened. So, circle 2 years later, fortunately, the actual inn basically was sold to Shabbat of the Main Line, and unfortunately, they converted it to a Jewish synagogue in 2004. Rabbi Shagar Sherman actually, bought it and then converted it. So, fortunately, the original bar and all that is no longer basically there. But what's interesting is when I captured those photos of those green yellow streaks of light in 2002. There's actually reports of people seeing a Hessian soldier named Wilhelm who died in the actual inn in the 1770s when his commander Colonel Raw, of course, when Washington was going off to Delaware and attacking him. So basically, that kind of matches the eyewitness accounts of people seeing Hessian soldiers in the Inn of the 17 Ghosts. So right around 2004, 2005, Ghost Hunters comes out, of course, much like everyone at that time. It kind of really became one of the first shows to really pioneer. I really started becoming hooked at it, like as soon as it started coming out. And I've seen Jason and Grant doing watching all their episodes and seeing how Tango and Steve and all them and Brian all came together and really made a great team. And it started really peaking around 2007 when, of course, Paranormal State came out. And my best friend, Heather Taddy. Actually, my friend Gwen actually went to school with Katrina Weidman and Heather Taddy, from Paranormal State. And of course, that was about the students from Penn State, Ryan Buell, Sergi, Heather, Katrina. And that was another one that really piqued my interest because Chip Coffey was on it, which I love Chip Coffey.
Yeah, Chip
I love him
awesome,
too.
right? Yeah.
He's a great guy. And of course, when 2008 Ghost Adventures comes out with Zach Baggins, and all of a sudden I just got instantly hooked. I didn't miss an episode at all. When they would be, their first episode, of course, Bobby Mackey's, and I watch it up till today. So for me, seeing exactly get interested in these topics. And then in 2014, I watched an episode called A Haunting of Summerwind, season 1, episode 2. And Summerwind is a really fascinating place. It dates back to 1914 when a guy named John Frank, who lived in Akron, Ohio, created it. It was originally called West Bay Lake Fishing Lodge, and there you could, fish for $4.99 and stay for $4.99 a night. And then, unfortunately, 2 years later, in 1916, the current owner actually sold it to a guy. Mr. Frank actually sold it to a guy named Robert Patterson Lamont, who was the future U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President Herbert Hoover. And their president, Mr. Lamont actually went ahead, converted the mansion to a full-fledged mansion. They used employed Chicago architects Talmadge Talmadge and Vernon Watson to convert the mansion into, from a fishing lodge to a mansion. And those renovations took a couple of years. But what's interesting is, according to the supernatural history of Summerlin, the servants told Mr. Lamont, "Hey, there's a floating lady in the kitchen, and there's a hauntings going on." So the servants were telling him back in the 1920s that there was actual paranormal activity associated with Summerlin. But unfortunately, Mr. Lamont said, "Grow up. There's no such thing as ghosts," until he was. And there's even rumors of U.S. presidents staying there in the 1920s, like Warren G. Harding and Calvin Coolidge. So there's rumors about Mr. Lamont's summer home, and then they come in there, and then of course the story.
Coolidge ghost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did. Yeah. That you can look that kind of thing up. That's interesting.
Very possible. So that's all in the history of the book. So what was interesting was in Summerwind episode, I'm friends with the family that lived there in the 60s and early 70s. So the actual, according to the story, Mr. Lamont and his wife are sitting in front of their eating dessert one night near in the kitchen area, and of course the basement door flew open, revealing the ghostly form of a man. And there, basically, Mr. Lamont grabbed his black powder pistol, fired 2 shots, thus missing the ghost, and never returned to the mansion. So in 1948, he went ahead and he passed away, unfortunately. And he was so a lady named Lillian Kiefer, who in the haunting episode was known as Mrs. Murray. They changed the name to protect the identity of the people involved in the story. So much like you have a stage name or something when you go out and perform in front of an audience. So basically, when Miss Murray or / Miss Patterson had it, she went ahead and, of course, during that time, she basically, unfortunately, when Miss Kiefer had it, like owners reverted over the next 20 years until the Hinshaw family moved in 1969. Ginger passed away 2013, but her daughter April is still alive. And when they first pulled up to the house in the summer of 1969, they had to have it. They thought it was a great project house, a restoration house they could fix up, make a go of it again, and of course, try to see if they can make it livable. So of course, during that time period, basically, like, they would nail the windows shut, and all of a sudden the windows would fly open on their own. There's reports of cars, basically, that cars would catch on fire. And of course, Mr. Hinshaw, of course, had a construction business. So basically, he needed to get to work. So there was actual reports of the daughter April. Mr. Hinshaw, of course, asked his stepdaughter to go look into this crawl space. And there, she went ahead and went into this crawl space and saw this black skeleton, a skeleton with black hair. And then when they went to report it to the authorities, the skeleton was gone. And then, of course, there was actually stories from somewhere that'll just gore your hair. And then, of course, as time went on, things got worse at Summerwind. Of course, the stepdad went mad. He played the organ to all hours of the night.
Let's hold on 1 sec. Let's break this down a little bit, because I know Summerwind was one of the kind of highlights in your bio, and you mentioned we had a question about exactly that, blueprinting it for the future. Now there's a whole lot of different ghost stories going on here. I think we're just getting through them too quickly. I want to talk about the skeleton.
A lot of coffee there.
Like a skeleton with like black hair. Was the bones black or just the hair?
Just the hair was black. And according to when I talked to April, and she was a 10-year-old child in like 1970, 1969 when she crawled into this crawl space. And according to the reports that basically Mr. Hinshaw, of course, his real name was Jim Hill. Of course, they changed the name on everybody to protect their identities. So when he shined his flashlight in there, he saw this skeleton. So she went ahead, investigated, and completely screamed. And you could hear from a mile away, much like a little girl that was, making sure that basically she was kind of really, like, wonder what the heck's going on here. And then she was terrified of it. And according to there's a story of a little girl named Lucy that was basically that had lived on the property back during the Lamont time. And she was like she was a servant. She was the daughter of one of the servants there. And she passed away in the 1920s, 1930s. And that could have been, her possible skeleton. And maybe they just saw like a residual kind of haunting where basically they saw something and all of a sudden, and then it just disappeared. So that story is interesting.
Of course, being 10 years old, you're still kind of open to things that maybe you haven't learned to unbelieve. And maybe she was just the right
Understood.
age and
Yeah.
body chemistry to see something that other people wouldn't, and actually saw it. I have no doubt that she may have seen it. Linda, our friend Linda Judd, was asking
Hi, Linda.
what was the blueprint idea that went along with
Yeah.
looking at Summerwind. What do you mean by blueprint?
So Blueprint is basically in 2014. We'll skip ahead now, to 2014 a little bit, and we'll go backtrack. But 2014, I had decided to. I watched the episode of Haunting, and I started becoming interested in the history of Summerwind. So I went ahead and basically started. There was a website called SummerwindMansion.com that was still standing at that time. It was still, online. Kind of gave you like just information about the property. On one of the menus, I clicked the link and it said blueprints for sale. And all of a sudden, so I went and basically clicked the link to find the blueprints. And there, the brother of Ginger Hinshaw, Ray Von Bober Jr., actually was selling the original blueprints. So I reached out to him, I contacted him, I made an offer, and I bought not only a copy of the original blueprints that he had, but also the actual engineering diagrams, which I have put away in my closet. So this is, you have the original blueprints for Summerwind. And then when I got the original blueprints, I started finding how can I find a way to to provide access to the owners of the property. So Craig Nearing from the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters, a longtime friend of mine and colleague, actually knew the owners of the property, Mr. and Miss Tracy, who bought it in 1985 after Miss Keeper died, and so Miss Tracy actually bought the when basically Craig got when they bought the property, of course. Mr. Tracy bought it for a wedding anniversary present for his wife. And according to reports from Craig said that the Tracys one night were walking up to the property and the mansion was actually inhaling. Unfortunately, in 1988, the mansion burnt down. There's actually they said lightning and fire took it down, but actually there was a neighbor at Summerwind that said that actually there was a fire, that the township actually was tired of people trespassing and vandalizing on the property for legend tripping to get their own paranormal experiences. So
That's
they
so
went so they went ahead and decided to take it upon themselves. Like the fire department had told this neighbor that there's going to be a fire department on site and not to worry. So they went ahead, took bays of hail, and pretty much just leveled it right down Broadway, and then basically there's nothing left today except for the chimneys and foundation. So my idea is we have the original blueprints. So recreating Summerwind will not be a problem at all. Craig has been working on having haunted, hosting public investigations on the property and doing campouts there since 2014. So basically, there's a lot of interest from people that are interested in airing a new, updated version of the Summerwind story. And
fascinating. So I can bring it back.
Yeah.
And I just want to just say hi to a couple of friends out there. A lot of comments. Irene Takura from Japan, from Tokyo. How you doing?
Hi, Irene.
Matt Waddell, thank you for the funny comment. Yvonne Dickinson and Mr. Greg Koss. Don't be sorry, Greg. How you doing, buddy? Greg had Dave Schrader on.
Yes, he did.
Watching, and I'm sorry, Greg. I was out doing errands. I didn't get to watch the show yet, but Kristen was on it. Dana D, Joshua Dixon, what's up, buddy?
Hi, Joshua. And
Greg asked the Summerwind in North Wisconsin on the Cisco chain. Is it on the Cisco chain?
Not that I know of. No.
I'm not sure what that is. Sorry.
Yeah, I basically would have to assume that what that may be a question I have to look up, research further about what he means by Cisco chain. Maybe he's talking about a specific area of the country, but I know everything there is to know about the history and the mansion from
It's fascinating because if you want to rebuild it, I guess I'm under the assumption that you think the land is haunted, that the actual building itself isn't as relevant as maybe the land that it sat on if it burned down.
In fact, what's interesting is on the property, Craig and the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters have been doing investigations there since 2009, and they conclude that the land is still very haunted, and there's actual Indian burial mounds on the property. And according to this story, there's a book called A Carver Effect, A Paranormal Experience, written by Ray's father, Wolfgang von Bober, who was a popcorn vendor from Chicago in 1979. Of course, when he got the property, when he got control of the property in the Hinshaws, Ginger's father bought it, and so basically, he decided to make it go to the place again. And when they got it around 72, 73, of course, Ginger warned her father not to buy the house. Of course, he decided, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So when Ray Jr. just got out of the Army at that time, is actually doing renovations inside the house, he actually started getting visions of the flashback of the Mr. Lamont firing his black powder, and the bullet holes were still actually in the basement door at that time. So
Wow.
basically, what was interesting was about this house is that basically, when after Ray's father got it, they actually were measuring rooms actually in the house, and according to the thing, someone's actually known to change shape. Yeah, they would actually measure rooms from the original blueprints, and all of a sudden, when they took their tape measures, the length and width would change on the fly. So that's a pretty interesting story from Ray Von Bober Jr.,
Yeah.
who I talk to on a daily basis. So this was all documented in the
What do
Carver
you
Effect book.
What do you mean that the length and width would change? Like they would measure it out per the
Yeah.
blueprint, and then
Yep.
how does it change? Like when they start to put it together, or
Exactly. Like when they would start renovating, like, bringing painting in, of course, there would be like appliances, like, water heaters and stuff in the house that would break down that all of a sudden would work again. Workers would, report, like, see, like when they would, when they would work on certain parts of the house, like, with different tools, those tools would disappear, then reappear somewhere else the next day. So that no one wanted to work on the mansion. So there's a lot of stories of people seeing things and hearing things. So basically, the reports of the shape changing is been documented since the 1970s with the Hinshaw family and the Von Bober family when they had it, and of course this keeper. So there's like 3 different owners saying the same thing, and according to Craig, I think parts of the chimney's been known to shift as well. I can't verify that, but he would be able to tell that to you because he's actually on site there in Wisconsin. He would know all about the shape changing.
Wow.
that's pretty interesting.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the
Philip
Fox
Wyatt
hunters,
says,
ghost hunters
I
have
believe,
done a lot. And
elemental. I'm sorry.
That's it.
I had a question for you. He says,
Sure.
I believe Elemental's a great paranormal investigator himself. Philip Wyatt has been on our show
Yes.
Right.
a couple of times from Georgia Paranormal. Says, I believe elementals protect sacred Native American land, not the Native Americans. They were so spiritual. I believe they move on. So he's saying that it's elementals. And
Yeah.
what do you think of that? And have you had any experience with elementals? And that includes things like fairies, pukwudgies, gnomes, goblins, hobgoblins,
Yep.
and the gob that they worship, which is like the head one I found out recently. Did you know that? That's where the name goblin comes from, gob.
Right. Not on our investigations per se, but I know that Craig definitely feels on the Sutherland property there's like some kind of elementals there. Because they would basically be doing like running their EMF meters in certain parts of the foundation. Of course, rocks will come flying out of nowhere, and of course, some of their and some of their investigators they would take, Craig would take them and of course put one of their investigators in isolation, and then all of a sudden, basically, then they would they would use their do EVP work or their voice recorder. All of a sudden, they would hear a raccoon would fly out of nowhere from one of the trees and land on one of the investigators' laps. And the after going back to the EVP, they basically say that I pushed it. So those are some of the stories that Craig's had, of the mansion. So there's definitely seems to be some kind of elementals there. It's kind of hard to say exactly. Is it Native American tribes? Very possible. And according to the main theme of the Carver Effect, the ghost that was haunting Summerwind Mansion was named Jonathan Carver. He was actually born in Weymouth, Massachusetts in the 1700s.
He was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jonathan actually, basically was supposedly haunting the house. And then, as time went on, basically he was looking for a land grant that would have granted him a northern third of Wisconsin. And people still go on the house, still on the property today, to go looking for this land grant. So they dig up the Tracy's property, and unfortunately, there's of course nothing there. But according to Craig, he had told me that basically that the land grant was found in England. Of course, Jonathan Carver passed away in the 1690s, early 1700s, and I think that he had basically been laid to rest in he was born in a pauper's grave in England. And one of his descendants is actually a core member of our the Summer Wind Restoration Society named Michelle Fontana. She is actually related to Jonathan Carver. I think she's like a many times great granddaughter of his. So to have one of the Carver descendants working on the Summer Wind, project is absolutely awesome. For her family being there and all that. So, I'm definitely hoping that someday we can rebuild it. Yeah.
Philip commented he believes elementals shapeshift to match your fears, and that's an interesting comment.
Yes.
Greg Haas mentions that it's in some of his musky fishing areas north of where we have been for 60 years, family wise, on Star Lake. And Greg is a muskie fisherman. Besides investigating the paranormal and hosting
Awesome.
Shadowhunters Paranormal and Metaphysical Crossings,
Nice.
plug, Greg.
Yes. Did last night for us.
Absolutely, we love that. We love our friends. They're best, man.
Yeah.
Best people.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, he does a lot of muskie fishing out that
Nice.
way, and has
Cool.
historically. So he knows that area. Natalie Mosley asked a question here. Hey,
Sure.
Natalie, how you doing?
Hi, Natalie.
She says, is all that paranormal activity and changing dimensions would affect the ability to rebuild?
I would say yes, definitely, because especially with all the things that's going on, like, we actually had estimates done in order to get see how much it would cost to rebuild the mansion from the ground up. And of course, the estimates that we've gotten on the rebuild is going to be about $500,000 to $700,000. And you also got to factor in building codes and zoning codes and all that stuff. So the neighbors, of course, would have to make sure they would have to approve it as well. And of course, Craig has been, basically, hosting the investigations there in hopes of trying to get it. He has an LLC and a 501c3. So anyone that's interested in, of course, participating in the project, just go to Facebook. And there's a group called Summerwind, like the word summer, all one word, Summerwind, and then type in Haunted Mansion in the group search, and it'll automatically pop up. So you guys want to participate in the project. So I definitely feel the paranormal activity and the changing dimensions. Like if the place was rebuilt, I think the activity would escalate through the roof, because basically, if the house is already Craig has actually ran EVPs on the property, and they're basically, he actually spoken to a voice recorder and said, would you like us to rebuild? And the ghost there that Craig has supposed to capture the voices of, he said, yes, rebuild Summerwind. So basically, in my opinion, I think anytime you attempt to change or modify a structure that's no longer in existence, I definitely feel that the activity would escalate through the roof once it's rebuilt. I think that the idea of doing a TV show or a TV series of this on the History Channel or Discovery Plus, of being able to, rebuild it all the way from, basically all the way from nothing to a completely brand new mansion. And I think that there's parts of it that we can still use in the rebuilding, like the arches, where you can still get out of the rain, where the basement is. That's still there. There is actually, of course, the foundation and stuff is still there. So there is, I would definitely feel that if the place was rebuilt, the activity would be up through the roof, and it would be kind of very much, one of the most haunted mansions in the entire Midwest.
It seems like it would be definitely one of those things. I see there are books written about it. I wasn't all that familiar with the legend, so thank you for introducing it to us. Joshua asks or mentions that burning it was ridiculous. The property, I think you mentioned it got struck by lightning, or they thought, right?
Yes.
It still exudes its spirit, and he asks who owns the property now, who is the owner.
Currently, Craig, it's kind of he runs the property for the Tracy. So the property was, bought in 1985, 86 by three investors, Harold and Babs Tracy. They're now in their late 70s, early 80s. They've owned it since then for a long time. So they live up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And of course, they had, many reports of seeing the place. And I've talked to Mr. and Miss Tracy. They are very sweet people. And I think Craig, of course, eventually wants to buy the property and reopen it as a haunted bed and breakfast or haunted mansion when it's rebuilt. So I think the Tracys are kind of like the current owners, the stopgap owners, but I think eventually the property is going to need eventually future owners that can get it up to par once it's rebuilt. So basically it's I think I would definitely look up Fox Valley Ghost Hunters on Facebook, and Craig has direct access to the owners. So anything that you guys would like, questions for the owners or questions for Craig, that would probably be the best source. I would highly recommend for people to contact the owners would be through foxvalleyghosthunters.com, fvghosthunters.com.
Well, that's pretty cool. And yeah, thank you for letting us know about that. We'll follow up with you, because I would be interested in just being on the grounds. It sounds amazing. Philip also mentions here, he says, is there a shift in energy? He's had 5 investigation submissions through his website in the past 10 days. That's never happened. Have you been getting more? Have you been finding there's more people looking for investigations, which will lead us right into the Phantom Detectives we can talk about?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to say yes. I think there's definitely a lot of shift. You're seeing the field constantly evolving, and you're seeing a lot of more and more people building teams, which I think is wonderful. You see more and more radio shows out there. You're seeing like more. I think because it's Discovery Plus, because now we can watch all these shows with the convenience of a simple, smartphone or iPad or So I definitely feel there's like an explosion of, more and more of these people. So there's definitely seems to be a lot of shift in the everything.
Yeah, Linda Judd was asking like about the paranormal. I'm sorry, the Phantom Detectives, and how you guys came together.
Sure.
I know I've heard of you guys. I've heard of some of you guys and seen you around in different interviews. So let our audience know how it started and who's in it.
Sure. So basically, the team was founded in August 20th of 2020. I had left a previous team because I didn't like how my old society leader was running the show. So I decided, I wanted to create a new start for me, my former lead investigator. And so basically what I did was, she's a sound engineer. She's a Civil War reenactor. She builds paranormal equipment. She actually helped us, a lot in the early days of getting this society started. So basically this person and I decided we're going to start over. So what I did was went ahead and created business cards, had them done with Alpha Graphics, which they do fantastic work. I went ahead and had it set up, created a team email on Gmail. I had set up social media pages. I had a logo design, the ghost, you can see the ghost of the magnifying glass. So I went ahead and, of course, had a website built, phantomdetectives.org. So I basically had everything built from the ground up. And then we started doing investigations under the new banner. And our first pre-investigation was a place called the Selma Mansion, which is in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And there was a person who was doing an exhibit, like something like, I can't remember, like Traveling Paranormal or something. It was Brian J. Cano, who's a really good friend of mine. I absolutely love Brian. And he was on the Haunted Collector with John Zaffis. I think he was like the tech manager, and he was also an investigator. So he was there bringing all his paranormal devices, and he was we're doing a public investigation with him at the Selma Mansion. And this place dates back to 1794. Of course, General Andrew Porter, who actually served under George Washington in the American Revolution, much like Mad Anthony Wayne. And of course, he was the great grandfather of Mary Todd Lincoln, President Lincoln's wife. And so basically, we did our first investigation with Brian, and he taught us how to, run the EMF meters, how to do EVPs, how to take thermal pictures, how to run the SOS. So he gave us like some, tutorials on the basics of paranormal investigating. And of course,
that's a nice way to start out, right?
Exactly. Learn from somebody so knowledgeable in the field. So once we took that knowledge, then we went ahead and did our first official team investigation on December 9th, 2020 at a place called the Sanderson Museum, which this is a really cool location. It was actually created for a person named Christian Sanderson. And Christian Sanderson was he was a radio show host. He used to host square dances. In Chad's Ford, he also did a lot of, he actually had, was a musician. He did a lot of violin concerts. He also was a poet, an actor, a traveler. He did a lot of stuff. And of course, his mother, Hannah, had, fortunately died in the museum in the 1940s. And I think around 45, 46, she died of tuberculosis. And I know she had some issues with her lungs. So Mr. Sanderson, he passed away around 1967. So basically, his friend was named Andrew Wyeth, was very close and dear to him. So basically, Mr. Wyeth, of course, passed around 2007, 2008. So basically, the night that we did our first investigation, we were in the violin room where all of Mr. Sanderson's museums are still housed to this day. And you can see them in the museum, and they're in the display cases. We set up a DVR camera, which is basically your standard, DVR camera that Zuzi DVR system. We use the network version because it's a lot easier instead of dragging around tons of audio and video cables with your home security system. So what was interesting was literally the first 2 hours we went in there, we had set up the security camera was going off. At the same time, our EMF meters, of course, we use Sasha had our former team member had a Rook EMF meter. And I had my Tri-Field TF2, which is a digital version of the classic Tri-Field meter. That was going off on top of I set up a millimeter about 5 feet apart. That was going off with the REM pod function. And then on top of that, when Sasha, our former team member, actually took a photo, we actually kept this really, defined orb where it had a certain color to it, like a blue color. And I've never seen that before. So you can add the EMF meters, and of course, several minutes later, the EMF meter battery is completely drained, and they were not near any electrical lines, or right in the middle of the room. So when your EMF meter's drained, on top of your security camera going off, on top of the orb, if you can add layers with all of your things, you definitely got some kind of paranormal activity. And later on that night, we actually went ahead and actually set up, like, did EVP work in some of the rooms. And, basically I asked a question to the voice recorder, "Are you married?" And, basically the response that came up was no. So it might have been Hannah, basically Christian Sanderson's mother. So when we actually went to our second investigation a month later, we went to the mill of Anselma, which is located in Chester Springs, Pennsylvania, right above Downingtown, about like 30 minutes from the Sanderson Museum. And the mill of Anselma is pretty amazing. It dates back to 1747. A guy named Samuel Lightfoot had created it. Actually, it also was actually a famous poet who lived there in the 1920s named Sarah Oberheiser. And of course, a millwright named Mr. Collins had lived there for a time too, from like 1920 to 1980, before he passed away. So what's interesting, the night that we were there at the mill of Anselma, actually we were doing the investigation. It was just me, my lead investigator, and I. So when we were there, we actually we had this door that was really reinforced. It was bolted shut, and like the security camera captured this door flying open by itself. I have no reasonable explanation why it happened. And what's interesting was we were the only ones on the property that night. Everyone else was gone. So there was no wind. There was no way for that door to fly open. And that's right on our YouTube channel, Phantom Detectives LLC. And you can see the door like just flying open by itself. And I have no reasonable explanation. And that thing has like an old-fashioned kind of latch on it too. Like, you have to physically like push it up like that. Like, go to like, you have to push it up like 3 or 4 inches in order for it to open. you know.
Yeah, that in my house. I understand.
Yeah. So when we did that one, and that was amazing, was a couple hours later that night, we captured a rope that was swinging just by itself like this. And that was pretty amazing piece of evidence as well. That happened on the second floor near Mr. Collins' old office, who was the millwright there in the 70s, 1960s. So basically that was pretty amazing. And then of course we got thermal images. And then when I was upstairs, I was on the third floor.
Let me stop you there. What are the thermal images kind of come across as? Are they blobs? Are they human-like?
Well, basically what we usually do is we use a FLIR thermal imaging, the TG165, which is really fantastic. Thermal cameras are great because they locate missing people in the wilderness. And usually if there's a living person or someone that's, alive, like a dog, or someone like me and you, it would be like an orange or a red. It would be a heat signature. Well, the night that we were at the mill of Anselma, we captured, some interesting, anomalies, like meaning things that weren't supposed to be there in different parts of the mill. And of course, basically, when we had captured those, all we did is you just point and click, and all of a sudden it takes the picture. So when I talked to Dave Giuliano and other people in the field that have been doing this for over 30 years, have said that basically if you have like a cold signature and like you capture some kind of figure, you might have some legit paranormal activity. And
right. You're looking for a cold spot mode.
Exactly. And the night that we were there, we were doing EVP work. We like to call it Phantom Time, which is kind of like our version of the EVP session, where we go up and ask the phantoms questions. And one of the responses that we got was, I asked a question like that night, basically, and then all of a sudden the word "go" came up, like, go, like you need to get out of here. That kind of terrified me. And that was on our website, phantomdetectives.org. So when we had basically we finished the investigation, it was one of the most wildest nights that we've ever done. We took a couple months off, and then what I did was I actually reached out to somebody by the name of Rick Warner. And here's where Rick comes into the team. Rick Warner actually is trained as a former certified UFO field investigator for MUFON. Of course, he also had backgrounds on editing and creating images. He also had to do field survey work. I mean, with his UFO background, I thought that he would be a great addition to Phantom Detectives, bringing in his, background as a certified UFO field trainer. So he originally was working with the Delaware MUFON, but he decided that it was time to move on. So he joined the team, and he's actually the U.S. ambassador to the Italian UFO Federation, FUI. So I thought he'd be a great acquisition. So he actually came into the team to bring his skills with interviewing clients, and witnesses, and bringing out their stories. So he joined us for our third investigation at the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia. The Betsy Ross House, of course, that's where the first flag of America was sewn in the 1770s. George Washington visited there, and it's got a lot of history. And people report seeing Betsy's spirit in different parts of the house, report hearing her crying, and all kinds of interesting things. And we booked a 2-hour investigation here through historic Philadelphia, which was really cool because not many teams have been to the Betsy Ross House. So when we did the investigation that night, we actually, of course, our lead investigator and our former lead investigator and Rick were down in the basement area of the Betsy Ross House. And what's interesting was Rick's scare bear. He's got one of those REM pod scare bears with the multi-LED lights. That was going off like crazy. And then, of course, our former lead investigator's paralight was spiking, it's like a K2 meter, had like these different colors. It's called the paralight from North Canton Paranormal detectives, and that was spiking like crazy. And then at the same time, in Rick's voice recorder, he had pulled up some growls, and they sounded like absolutely horrifying. And those are on our website under EVPs.
And this is at the Betsy Ross House?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to rewind just a little bit. We're going to go back.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, you mentioned doing an EVP session, and you called it Phantom Time. Like, yes. You have coined a term for doing an EVP session. Do you have a different approach to doing an EVP session than most teams? Do you have a specific thing or like a way of doing it? I know like some people do them in a round robin fashion, asking the same questions, or maybe they have their own, approaches. Is there something specific about Phantom Detectives, how you approach an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon session?
Well, actually, yes, we do a really good job. So what we do is, of course, we have several ways of doing this. We have our own Shares Warner version of the Estes method, of course, which is running the ghost box, where we hook up our psychic medium Melissa Ferrazano, who's a student of Cindy Kaiser from the Holzer files. So, of course, we actually run the standard ghost box hooked up to a portal box. And then Rick, of course, we use Rick's S box from Ghost Stop. It scans AM and FM stations and it picks up spirit. Yep. The really neat thing about the S box is, unlike the PSB7 and PSB11, it actually has an internal storage backing, so you can save your sessions basically. So what we do is we actually, hook up our psychic medium and plug her up with the Shares Warner method, much like the traditional Estes method that you've seen on the shows with the blindfold from A.D. Ruby and Adam Berry and Kindred Spirits. Our version is better because not only do we add scanning the AM FM stations, but we also add a voice recorder to that. So that's part of Phantom Time. And then we also add a paralight, a K2 light to add to the Estes method. So we kind of came up with our own style with that, and it gets great results. So our version is definitely a much improved version. And of course, when we do regular, just straight EVP sessions, what we do is we kind of just sit in a circle, basically. We just take our voice recorders, and then we set up EMF meters, and then just start asking questions like, is there anybody here? Do you have any messages for us? And we're always respectful. And every time we do an EVP session, we get at least one EVP from every investigation, because I think
that's a good track record. EVP is a pretty tough. Yeah, that is nice. We totally agree with you about respect. Respect is number one and should be a priority for the folks going out there doing this stuff.
Yes.
Would be our humble opinion as well. And
hello, Elaine.
Hello, Elaine. My mom there. Hi, Jan. How you doing? So that's great. I love that you have a great approach to doing these sort of things and things that are unique to the Phantom Detectives. It seems like a really interesting crew of people. You've got Rick Warner from the MUFON. So you've got kind of the alien abduction phenomena stuff covered, and there's a lot that goes with that. We feel like there's a lot of parallels. We talk to a lot of abductees and things like that between the paranormal and certainly ufology. It's
all under the same basically umbrella.
Steve Merrick calls it phenomenology, and I think that's a great term because it is all sort of the same stuff.
Right.
And I agree. Are definitely related. A lot of it seems to happen in those states where you're between wake and sleep, and we talk about that a lot. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic.
And what's so cool is
things of that
sorry,
nature.
Richard, but right a
Uh,
couple months before we did our third investigation, Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, who absolutely psychic explorer, world-renowned psychic
mhm.
medium, actually is kind of like our Jeff Bellinger. He actually joined the team as well. He does he researches the haunted locations for us, gives us like cases to check out. So, Mark is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's like got his own.
He was going to get to him next.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
calls himself the psychic lawyer, and obviously he's a lawyer in real life, right?
Yes, he is. He's actually was Oxford educated trial attorney. He's actually been on Gaia TV. He's with George Norrie on Coast to Coast. He's been on many different radio
Really?
shows and done readings. I mean, he's the real deal. He is absolutely fantastic, and everyone that basically every show he's on absolutely loves him. He's one of our saving graces, and he's the really cool thing is he actually has family up here that live up here in PA. And of course, he's going to be joining us on future investigations when he comes up to the area. Like if he comes up to Gettysburg for some of the big paranormal events, or Penhurst Paracon or anything like that. So he's definitely going to be involved with us for a long time to come. And Mark is just the nicest guy, and a very good friend of Dave Schrader's as well from the Holzer Files, one of my mentors in the field who I look up to. So Mark is wonderful. So he joined the team as well. And then what we did was, and I like to we circled it 2 months later after we do the Betsy Ross house. So a guy named Leo Ashcraft, who actually worked for Art Bell on Midnight in the Desert in 2015, he reached out to me in May of 2021 and said, hey, I have Dark Matter News. It was the primary news service of Art Bell's final return ever in 2015. I want to pass the torch to you. I want you to purchase it. So we went ahead and I made Leo basically an offer that I thought was fair for the brand. So we bought the rights to the Dark Matter News website. We bought the rights to the Dark Matter News name, the logos, and everything that is associated with that brand. And it was privately owned, so it wasn't a part of the Dark Matter digital network. It was, a newscast that was at the bottom of Art every hour on Art's show. So we went ahead and we rebranded under Phantom Detectives LLC membership, and we relaunched the website in July 20th of 2021 as like a paranormal news hub. So we want to be able to use this for like all of our, basically if anybody has like news on UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, anything there is to know like about paranormal news, we'll post it on the website free of charge for anybody. And the good news is we have an email address, so you can just send it to my Dark Matter News email inbox, and we'll post it up. And we also just went ahead and, we took all of the old 2015 files that Leo recorded for Art Bell, and we put them on the broadcast page. So in the future, I'm going to be recording new paranormal newscasts with the Dark Matter News brand, in the near future. So that'll be really cool.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
I brought up the website here for
Yes.
our watchers that are watching the live stream. To be able to check out, and right away we see
Michelle Free
and our
Yep.
friend Michelle Free.
Yes, she did, and she
Yeah.
actually worked with Heather and Art on Dark Matter Digital Network.
She did, yes. We know Michelle well,
Yes,
and I
we
see that's from International Remote Viewing Association.
Yep.
And that's fantastic. I know she's giving out some classes, and
Yes.
not giving out, but got a new line of classes coming out. So,
Yes.
Michelle, a plug. She's a good friend of ours.
Yes, she is.
She's so nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and
She's
it's
sweet.
so cool
Fun.
that you're bringing back Art, because Art Bell was really the forerunner of all this stuff as far as radio goes. And
Oh yeah, and you know what's
such a big-
funny? I got something funny for you guys. Not only after we bought Dark Matter News, but actually his oldest son, Vincent Pontius, actually lives in Philadelphia, an hour from me. So his oldest son, like that, basically, fortunately, long story there. I'm not exactly sure, but Art's first son lives in Philadelphia, like an hour from me, which is really cool. Like to have one of his family members directly right next to me. It's really neat to have that connection.
That is very
Absolutely.
cool. That's very cool, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you respect the tradition and these things that happened before you. But nobody could tell a story quite like Art.
Oh, he
And
was
we
amazing.
recently re-listened to the story of Mel's Hole,
Oh, yeah.
one of the more famous stories.
Yes.
And it's just so fascinating. And now it would come back to the show after months of Mel disappearing, and this
Yeah.
seemingly
Years.
bottomless hole that was on his property.
Yeah.
And they would lower things down into the hole like ice,
no
and it would come
bottom.
back, and it was like on fire and
Yeah.
would melt, and somebody
and
was
Art,
heating their cabin with it or something.
Yeah, it was like
Oh,
they
yeah.
put it under. It melted
Fantastic.
through they put it on top of the stove, and the stove went through the
Yeah.
The
floor, and
floorboards.
yes, and it just kept going and going,
cabin.
and the stuff was like 5 feet under with this ice supposedly
Right.
that should have melted.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
but
No,
Art-
it's a
fascinating
good
stuff.
story.
Absolutely.
It is, and Art and Ramona created Coast to Coast for for their love of radio, their love of blowing people out of the water in terms of being something unique, something different. And he really was like the pioneer of all this, and he made it possible for all of us to do what we're doing. So when he basically doing all these shows, like the good news is even though he's since passed away since in 2018, all his old shows are still out there for everyone to enjoy, and those will always live on. Those are timeless and classics.
Yeah, that's awesome,
definitely.
and I'm glad you're keeping
Yes.
that going, because we love that stuff, and I'm sure our audience does as well. So
Absolutely.
Dark Matter News is definitely a site you want to check out.
Yes.
We can talk about we talked about phantomdetectives.org, and I'm going to show that one real quick too. Let's see. I don't believe I put it up there. I know you've got some cool stuff on this website, so
Yeah,
I do want to share it with everyone.
Absolutely.
I've got too many tabs up. Bear with me.
always.
And I'm so glad because we're actually going to be making
Phantom Detectives.
we're actually going to be making more improvements to the website. And we do have a TV show. We're airing on Roku, Fire, Apple, and Google Play. And that's why I just put the banner up in front of the website so everyone can see it. The secondteamentertainment.com. You can go. I'll give everyone a link. I'll email to you guys. You can email it to your listeners. You can watch us on Second Team Entertainment, and we air every Friday night. We bring our investigations over to this digital platform. So it gives everyone a chance to really see what we're doing, what we're going to. So, and we're actually going to be building a press and media page next on our website. That's in development starting next week, where we're actually going to be building it's going to highlight all the media appearances that we're going to be if we're going to be doing a lecture on this town hall, or doing a basically instructional session, or basically we're going to be doing book signings here, stuff like that. It's going to be highlighting all the radio shows we've been on, all the podcasts that we've done, and different things like that. So that'll be a lot of fun for a lot of people to see.
That's very cool. Now you mentioned that Phantom Detective season 1 there is going to be on Roku, and
Yes.
we're big fans of Roku. We've got some Roku TVs, and we
Nice.
think, where on Roku
Yes.
do I go? Do I look up Phantom Detectives, or is it under another network or something?
It's on a different networks. There's a place called Second Team Entertainment. You just go to second, the word 2ND, and then teamentertainment.com. So second, 2ND, and then teamentertainment.com. You can subscribe for $4.99 a month, and it gives you unlimited content. So it's a really cool. You can see there's all of our websites at the bottom as well. Our YouTube channel, Melissa's website, Rick's, and Dark Matter News. So we have it all. You can click those pictures of and that'll take you to all of our websites.
Oh, that's great. And you've got EVPs up here on the website as well.
Yep.
And I see this one here catches my eye right away. Team founder Joshua Chairs asks Mr. and Mrs. Soprano, "Are you doing here?" And loud knocks are clearly heard. Now, I'm assuming this isn't the same soprano that we're all maybe a little more familiar with, Tony.
This was our eighth investigation that we had done, and we were actually just sitting around in the child's room asking questions, and we suddenly started hearing knocks in different parts of the house, and no one was there. So it couldn't have been anybody on the street, because basically everyone that night, it was a residential case.
Yep. Sorry. I don't know. Was this audio carrying through or not?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to play it first, but yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and phantom knocks are a neat thing, and I think there has a history there going back to the spiritualist movement and the Fox sisters, doing seances and getting knocks on the table and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a ton of them. We've had it happen though.
We've
happened
had
in
a lot of
Wilson Castle.
things
That was,
happen.
yeah, it's true.
That's so cool.
Get in my house, for goodness
Yeah,
sake. You
that's
can't
true,
say we
that's
haven't had a lot. So
It's not the most common bit of
yeah.
phenomena,
We don't really knock.
you know,
You have to knock back.
but sometimes they do. Sometimes they do.
You want to try it?
Let's see what we got here. Yeah. Was the audio coming through on your side? I'm not sure if it's coming through the stream or just we're hearing it, but I'll put it on.
And that was pretty wild. This was at White Chimneys. Someone threw a metal, it sounded like pennies hitting the floor from the audio recorder. So what was interesting was about that one. Me and the homeowner's kids were doing EVP session. I told them to be quiet, and, just do the EVP session at White Chimneys. And this house dates back to 1794. It was actually kind of much like the General Wayne. It was the General Wayne of the Lancaster, PA area. The Slave Maker Lock Company actually was founded there. And actually, the slave maker family lived there until like the 1860s, 1870s, up to the Civil War. And me and the kids were doing Phantom Time, just taking voice recorders, asking questions. All of a sudden, none of the kids, homeowners kids or me that were doing the EVP session had any kind of quarters or any kind of anything metal with us. So for that, that noise to fly across the sound like that, and everyone else was like 3 floors up in the attic, so there's no way it could have been in them. So basically, I have no reasonable explanation why that happened, how it happened. There was no other noise in the basement that could have caused that I could think of. And what's interesting was
it's really cool. Did you find any coins? Did you find anything metal or metallic? Because I don't know if that came through the stream, but we could. I was going to say, was it? And did you find anything there?
Well, I do know the history of the house, that there was once slaves that had lived there, and basically were like shackled up in the basement, according to the history of the house. So that's what might illustrate the noise that we heard. It sounded like a quarter or a coin hitting the floor, but actually that could have been like basically like the spirits of it trying to alert us, with shackle, or how to hitting the floor, letting us know, hey, we're still here. And what's wild is, Rick was actually upstairs, and at the same time this was going on, Rick was up in the attic area, and you can see on his ghost box there's some that say Pennyworth and my family members stay out. You can see those basically those are in the middle of the page somewhere. So Rick was running his S box, and a whole bunch of these EVP sessions came up, and these are from Rick's audio recorder. So he actually recorded a lot of different things, like there's one that says Pennyworth and my family members stay out and stuff like that. So these this could have been the spirits of the slaves that actually had once stayed there back in the 1800s. So that's pretty wild. Rick's S box and also my voice recorder captured that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I see that. Pennyworth. I'll play that one. Yep. Pennyworth. I hear that on the spirit box. Absolutely, that's pretty cool. And the voice pops up. Yeah, we love spirit box stuff. We're kind of ITC fans ourselves. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's so cool is actually Gary Galka, who's a good friend of mine. He really kind of helped pioneer the ITC with the spirit boxes. Of course, the original first spirit box was called the Frank's box, which was
Frank Sumptions,
Yep, was actually actually developed by Christopher Moon, and I know Chris very well, great guy. And the funny thing is, you'll see, if you watch the old Paranormal State from 2007, 2008, they were using the Frank's box, and of course 3 years later, Gary Galka takes that idea and then creates the PSB7 and PSB11, and he runs EAS distribution, which is based out of Connecticut. And of course, they make the millimeter and all that. So Gary kind of took the idea of the Frank's box and expanded it. And so the really cool thing about the PSB11, it scans 2 radio stations. So you can have one scanning AM and one scanning FM. And also, of course, the PSB7, the new version, has temperature and all that, and motion sensor.
It does, yeah. We just added one of those to our collection, actually.
Awesome, very cool.
Yeah, we love that thing. It's pretty cool. So it's kind of a classic, and it really does work well. We like the S box. I communicated with Gary. I don't know him, but I communicated with him about a video I took of our millimeter with the REM pod.
Nice.
That was going so bananas, and it's out on our YouTube channel.
Awesome.
If you look up Dark Horse Paranormal Productions on YouTube or Dark Horse Paranormal, you'll find it. I sent him the video, and he actually had no explanation. He said, I don't know why all those functions are doing what they're doing.
Right.
It's
so funny because the millimeter is absolutely awesome.
I think is the name of it, because it actually sounds like it's trying to play stuff. It's using those REM sounds, which are just a few different notes, but it's sort of an arpeggio. And it does actually sound like music, and all the settings on the millimeter were going
lighting up
bananas. And it was like 250 degrees in my bedroom when I used it at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it said it was. It wasn't, obviously.
Right.
But Gary's a good guy, very innovative, and I loved his story as well about his daughter and wife involved
his daughter Melissa. And of course, what was interesting was when before he created the millimeter, the 8704R, which was Zach Baggins and Aaron Goodwin and Nick Groff kind of pioneered on Ghost Adventures around 2010, 2011. When Melissa Galka had died, toxicology reports that she was coming home from homecoming one night when she was a senior. She was 17 years old. she hit a tree head on and was killed immediately. The toxicology reports after doing the autopsy of the body reported no foul play. So for her to die like that was kind of very sad. But then Gary came back and he started getting signs of her presence after she passed away. So he created the millimeter for when she was born, when she passed away, as a way to communicate with her from beyond the grave. So it measures temperature and EMF, which I love, and of course the upgraded version actually does laser grid lights. It does it plays music. It also has a REM pod built into it. It also has all the bells and whistles. It's like your standard temperature EMF. It also does more. We also used a Grayson box, which our friend Grayson Schmidt actually developed for us, which was no other team has this that I know of. I think he built very few of them, but the Grayson box is a modified K2 that if you look up paranormal technical support on Facebook, Grayson developed like the 2.0, which we have the last 2.0 he made, and it measures he has a battery drain meter on it, so we can now track as the battery is going down on the device, it goes from 9.0 all the way down to 0. We can track that, so we can see now that when the battery is being drained. Of course, then it has a temperature light, and of course UV lights and all that. So I love all the new toys. The tech is always constantly evolving. So Grayson's great. I think Grayson's going to be developing the Grayson Box 3.0 in the future, but he's not sure when that'll be. But I highly recommend reaching out to Grayson if you guys ever want one in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
We'll look into that, and we like all the stuff, even the classic stuff. You mentioned Hans Holzer and reading his stuff, and we use a compass.
Awesome.
Just an old school compass we'll take out because
Nice.
that's what was in the books. And I think it was Yankee Ghosts or something, one of them.
Yeah.
But I read that in a million years ago.
Right.
Now, and to this day, we'll take a compass out with us and see
Neat.
if it just starts spinning on its own. That's a good another question out here. Linda Judd says, I remember the show on Ghost Adventures when they had a special show talk to Mel and gave her a birthday party. That's right. I've seen that as well. And Gary's story is really touching, and it certainly lends credence to his interest in paranormal. And it's not just about making a quick buck. That's for sure. Because he's got some, he's got a real story there.
Exactly.
And it's touching. Trying to communicate with the afterlife. What are your thoughts on the afterlife?
I definitely can conclude basically that there is definitely, if the law of energy says that energy that cannot be created but cannot be destroyed, but move from one form to another, there definitely, so the law of energy says that basically we're moving from, so basically when we die, that there's this electromagnetic soul. And Mark, of course, wrote this new book called The Afterlife Frequency, where he dives into the electromagnetic soul and how this energy is like a pool, basically, and how in this pool it's kind of like when you see bubbles popping out of the surface, it kind of echoes basically. When you throw a stone to the water, you'll see it skip along, it'll create ripples, and that's exactly what Mark feels that the electromagnetic soul or the afterlife, basically happens. So when you see that, that ripple effect, basically, there's of course intelligent, that ripple effect is created from living spirits that are directly haunting these locations, which are of course intelligent. And then of course when you have residual, which is like Gettysburg is a great example of people seeing cannons and hearing formations of Union and Confederate soldiers marching up and down the town. And so
full-bodied apparitions. It seems like it's more those kind of photos than anywhere.
Exactly, like a tape recorder playing itself over and over. And of course, when you also have basically the demonic, inhuman spirits, we haven't had any of those yet. But usually demon case, if we ever have those kind of cases, we're going to refer people to Bill Bean, who's a demonologist based out of Maryland, very good friend of mine. Also Dave Giuliano from the Ghost Hunter store. There's people in my field that are trained in those kind of cases that we'll refer our clients to. So as we continue to grow and get bigger, we'll definitely, if we ever feel we can do cleansings and stuff like that, with sage and stuff like that. Like Melissa, our psychic medium. In fact, I'll bring her. Might as well bring her in and introduce who she is. So Melissa is, of course, she actually joined the team in June 2021, and she was recommended by Cindy Kaza from the Holzer Files herself. Melissa is a psychic medium. She's a life coach. She studies advanced mediumship, advanced development. She's also trained in remote viewing somewhat. She knows a lot about past life regressions, and she does readings. And she actually joined the team to bring her skills in because we didn't have a psychic medium because Mark is so busy. So basically with all these different book lectures, so Melissa comes in and brings her skills in to the team, to the talent pool of fan detective. So she is also a case manager. So any kind of investigations that are coming in, she intakes all the, she handles all the phone calls, all the, residential business owners. So she's very much involved in the booking of the investigations. And of course, Rick is a director of client relations. So she handles all that. So when Rick does the audio interviews with the client, so he'll actually use his skills as a MUFON certified field investigator. And basically, his website's erc2explore.com. So he actually will do. He actually is really good at drawing out the interviews, and then we'll listen to the audio. I'll listen back to the audio that Rick does with the client, and then we'll make the decision: is this case warranted taking up or not? That's kind of based on like all the information that's available. So to really have a team of people like myself, Melissa, and Rick, and of course Mark, and on the team as well, we definitely feel like the afterlife is very out there, and it's definitely these spirits want their voices to be heard. So that's what we do with our equipment and also with our team is we want to give these spirits that are haunting these places a voice, and we come in with respect, and we don't try to provoke people, much like other teams. Like you'll see Zach Baggins saying, "Oh, if you did it to him, do it to me." I think provoking is the absolute wrong way to do things. You always want to treat people how to be treated, if they're living or they're alive or they're passed on. Like if you treat them with
we're not
respect,
into provocation at all.
Nope.
Exactly.
Even if the being is seemingly, malevolent. I mean, you're not making it any better. And who are we to judge, anyways? What happens after death? Yep. Bob Burnell, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Kim Libby says we've seen a full body apparition in our home, but the coolest was when, in broad daylight, my husband and I saw legs from the knees down walking through our dining room of a female. Well, that is pretty.
That's a little, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a little disturbing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah, Barbara, spiritual medium, says hi from Wales,
Hi, Barbara.
UK. Great break.
Awesome.
So
welcome.
Nice to see you guys there. And I've got I think that's, you said it's Rick's site, ERC Extraterrestrial Research Center, showing the screen on that. A lot of really cool websites here, guys. Again, I want to go through a couple of them to make sure. You can reach out to Psychic Medium Autumn at psychicmediumautumn.com. And I believe that is the Melissa that you mentioned, correct?
Yep. Yes, that is. That's our Melissa. And she does readings for her clients. And I think she does private readings, and she also does readings in person. And what's going to be super cool is you guys can meet us all in person. Like if there's anybody, if any of your listeners are in Pennsylvania or Maryland or Delaware, we're going to be at the Performing Arts Center in Media, Pennsylvania. Basically on the 29th of September. We're going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation where we highlight how we do our investigations, giving a lecture. So it's going to be a really cool way for people to interact with us and meet us in person. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And that'll be 6 days after World's Largest Ghost Hunt. So people can meet us in person. I think it'll be, I'll make sure you get you guys that link so you can put it up on your website, and that'll be really cool. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll throw all those links together, and you can find those on our own pages, which of course is Bigfoot and the Bunny on Facebook, Dark Horse Paranormal on Facebook, and those will probably be the best places to do that. We're always posting something the other up there. We'll put them with the collection because some cool stuff. And I like that you got a lot of different angles going on. You've got psychics, you've got ufology going on, you've got mediumship and technical directors and that sort of thing. So it sounds like a really well-rounded team.
Oh yeah, and I especially with my historical knowledge, I feel that's where my expertise on the team is not only, of course, evidence review I'm very good at, but also knowing the history. So when Melissa, every time that she has no idea of the history, just like when she debuted with us,
she'll go in blind. Basically, she doesn't want to know anything. I like that. Yes,
exactly. So what was amazing was her debut investigation with us. We were at the Selma Mansion. Fortunately, the Norristown Preservation Society, Bill Freeman, who is a longtime friend, just passed away in April. God rest his soul. He was a great person. Bill was, one of just a great all-around good man. And we booked the investigation through him. So we did it on June 25th, 2021. And Melissa immediately started picking up on a servant lady who was there, wearing a white dress, and she started describing her. And what was interesting was during that investigation, on her investigation tab, you could see the thermal imaging camera, like we took it in the kitchen area, and we picked up the spirit of the servant lady on the thermal camera. And then, of course, basically that same night, the SLS camera, which we moved against a solid wall, we also mapped her there. And what was wild was the night that during her debut investigation, she says, "I'm sensing connection Lincoln." And then when I go back, I find out it's, Mary Todd Lincoln was someone to shop in Philadelphia in the 1850s, 1860s, before President Lincoln became president. So that's pretty amazing.
Wow.
That basically this, that she was picking up a connection to Lincoln. And then when we did the world's largest ghost hunt last year, we returned to Sanderson Museum, this time with Melissa and Rick. We actually started basically picking up. She's also sensing. I'm sensing another connection in this in the museum. And then when I went to check the back history of the museum, I find out that there's a bandage that actually was on President Lincoln after he got killed by John Wilkes Booth at Thor's Theater in 1865 in the museum. And then, of course, there's a purse from the Jenny Wade House in Gettysburg. That's there. And she says, "I'm picking up a connection to Gettysburg," this younger lady. So her readings were spot on. And I gave her no knowledge of the history. She could not have known any of this. And she was able to pick up on it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Zukum
Like
Dukum
this,
on our YouTube channel says visible light spectrum and concept of time. Yeah, definitely subjects we like to talk about. I have had out-of-body experiences that showed me beings in another dimension on another planet, most profound experience ever. And I do think it's only humans that experience this linear time. I don't think that the ghosts do. It just doesn't seem like they have a certain time. I think they can just be where they want to be. Yeah. And you mentioned life being like, like maybe the soul or spirit being EMF related. I would remind our audience that EMF is a light spectrum, and when people say things like, "We are beings of light," right? Is a nice thing people like to say. Well, that is what magnetism is.
Exactly.
Is he from Norristown? Are you from Norristown?
I actually am very close there. I went to Westchester, but I go up there like a lot every couple of weeks. I actually have been, we've done investigations around. Of course, we did Selma Mansion, the Mill of Aunt Selma, which is right outside Norristown. So the original headquarters of our team was in Downingtown, but then when my former lead investigator left last December, we decided to move operations to my home city of Oxford, which is basically right on the border of Chester County and southern Chester County and Delaware. So right on the Pennsylvania-Delaware border. So, of course, Rick and Melissa are from Wilmington. So I'm like an hour away from Norristown. So I'm very close and accessible to anybody who needs to reach us.
Oh, that's great. That's great. She grew up there and
went to school there.
Her father was in that area as well, I believe,
right.
growing up. So that's interesting little coincidence there.
Yes.
So you're going to be part of the world's largest ghost hunt. And this is a string of investigations. And I believe it's international, right?
Oh, absolutely. So
it's an international event. You take a national ghost hunting day. It's September 24th, the Saturday in this month. These investigations are simulcast together.
Yes.
Somebody can watch a stream and then you're going to see all these haunted locations everywhere and people investigating them. Yeah. And they mentioned that's strange because Dad went to high school there in Downingtown. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about that and where you're going to be. I know that's our background picture is the Poplar Mansion. What's the story with the Poplar and how is this all going to work? How do people tune in and check it out?
So basically, the world's largest ghost hunt was created by Maria Schmidt. I know her as Ghost for Maria Schmidt on Facebook, and Brian Cano, of course, who taught me at the Norristown Preservation Society. They started this event in 2016 as a way to bring para-unity with all these teams and all these historical locations at once investigating. So definitely was kind of bridging the gap of the paranormal field together, basically, and all in one night, basically in different time zones all over the world. And Maria's worked very hard. So this year, she's not going to be running the event. It's going to be the Daughters of Hecate, which is Michelle Roos, who's a good friend of mine, and her team, as well as Rob. I can't remember his exact name, but Rob is running it. And so basically, they're running the world's largest ghost hunt this September 24th. And the cool thing is, I think Daryl Marston from ParanormalWarehouse.com is going to be helping us as well. He's going to be at Fort Mifflin that night. Daryl, of course, was on the updated version of Ghost Hunters that was airing when Grant Wilson took it over. And then, of course, Daryl left and then, started his own thing. So ParanormalWarehouse.com will be one of our partners this year. Also, from what I remember, of course, Dark Matter News will be joining up as a partner of an affiliate of World's Largest Ghost Hunts. Basically, and the really cool thing is Art Bell's old announcer, Ross Mitchell, was kind enough to not only record my team a voiceover, but also record the World's Largest Ghost Hunt a voiceover, which was really cool to add to kind of give to that Art Bell kind of feel to World's Largest Ghost Hunt. So the Poplar Hill Mansion, is very historic. It dates back to the 1700s. The person that actually founded it actually was founded one of the first medical schools in Maryland, and also, basically some of his old stuff there. It's just really neat history, and we're going to be there the night of September 24th at Poplar. And what's really cool about this place is we actually booked this investigation through the curator, and a couple of news stations are actually going to be potentially interviewing us before we do our investigation around 6 and 7. I think there's 2 news stations coming out that are in that same area. And they're going to do a segment on us, and we're going to show them like some basic knowledge of tech and what we do. And then that's going to be, airing on, many news stations in the Maryland and Delaware area. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Great.
And also, be able to, continue this and try to grow and expand it. Of course, I'm hoping that many people are watching this event worldwide. And of course, we're going to film this investigation as well. It's going to be on Second Team Entertainment on our TV show within like 2 or 3 weeks after we do it. So that's going to be a really great way to bridge, bringing Paraunity. And I love working with all the teams all over the world, and it's going to be a very special night. And this year is going to be the 5th year that it's been out. So for us to really, be one of the, partners of it is absolutely fantastic, and it's very special and dear. And we're very thankful for everyone that's participating and everyone that will be watching it. It's going to be a great opportunity, and I think it's going to be airing on YouTube. You can just type in World's Largest Ghost Hunt, or I think either Largest Ghost Hunt on YouTube, and you'll see like all the locations that were investigated last year. And I assume that they're probably going to be updating that on YouTube for this year as well.
Right. We were in part of that last year as well. So
awesome. we were at Wilson Castle in Vermont, Proctor, Vermont.
Very cool.
One of the locations, and that was nice. It was a lot of fun. It was.
I'd walk by the cameras and just wave to everybody every time we walk by.
Nice. Out there in some stream somewhere.
Yeah.
In the interwebs, in the cloud.
And it is international, because I remember there was a castle in Ireland, and then I think it was one in
That's
Scotland.
what I was thinking. Yeah. We were looking at that. The castle in Ireland was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But you got a lot going on.
Oh my God.
What do you do in your free time?
Yeah.
I don't think you have free time. You have a lot of things going on.
And the funny thing is, and even in October, we're going to be doing not only that, but also we're going to be doing a couple of things. We're going to be setting up a vendor table. We're going to be coming back to Fright Fest like 2 weeks later on setting up a vendor table so people can still meet us there. We're going to hand out our postcards, our business cards to people. And then, of course, we got actually in October, I think we're on the 3rd or 4th week, we're going to be at the lightship Overfalls. This is this is an actual like a lighthouse that's on a ship. We're actually going to be doing like a lecture there on the 21st of October in Lewis, Delaware, which is down by the beach area of Delaware. And I think that the lightship Overfalls is like, we're actually been working in touch with their board and their directors. And what's really cool is this, we're going to be doing a little we're going to do a fun night with the kids since it's in October, about a week from Halloween. We're going to teach them Phantom Detectives, Ghost Hunting 101, like teaching them some of the basics. It's going to be like a fun kind of it's kind of like an Easter, kind of like looking for candy, basically, except you're looking for spirits, basically. We're teaching them how to do basic paranormal investigating 101. So it's going to be a great opportunity to teach the kids, and then they can apply those skills. And if they start one of their own teams in the future, it's going to be a great way for the public to interact with us and meet us in person as we continue to grow and get better. And then also in November, we also got a museum collections training. We're going to be going down to the Lewis Historical Society. I've been in touch with a guy named Marcos. So we're going to be doing that in November. And what's so cool about that is if we actually do this collection training, it's only going to take 1 day. It's going to open up like 13 or 14 new buildings on the Lewis Historical Society that we can actually investigate and do host public hunts at, including the Cannonball House, which is there's actually a cannonball stuck in the house, and it's known to be very haunted. So this is exactly what we're doing. I think we're doing an investigation in December. So we got that going on. We also, I think we got our 5th magazine appearance in less than a year. I think we're in touch of being in touch. We've been already so far in Paranormal Underground. We've been American Paranormal Magazine, Phenomenon Magazine, Fate Magazine.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to be featured.
Yeah.
Speaking of Steve Mara.
Steve Mara, yeah.
That's his baby. It's an awesome thing. I love that guy's research. That's so cool. I saw it in your videos there. I was showing your YouTube channel. You're working with the ANC Mini, and I was wondering what you thought of that. And do you like those kind of noise gating products that are connected now to boxes and like the portal?
So what we decided to do is, since we signed a contract with Second Team Entertainment and we moved all of our investigations over to a new platform, what we're doing right now is pretty much reviewing paranormal equipment. So I just did a review recently of the Grayson box and the millimeter, and gave my thoughts. And Rick, of course, reviewed some of his apparatuses. Like he's got, lighted dowsing rods, which are really cool from North Canton. They actually they go in the dark. We got those. And also, we got one of those 30-foot tripwire EMF. I might be reviewing that next. It's kind of like Christmas lights on a long string with these multiple EMF sensors. And I can say,
I've seen those. Those are really cool.
They really are.
Neat. And that's pretty cool.
And Jeff Eastman is fantastic. I just love how these people can take something like a simple like a K2 mirror and put it on a Christmas light, and you can drape them over. Like we got the 36-foot version. So you can stretch it out and you can throw it on like a floor, or you can put it on the door like that, and it'll light up really good. So there's a lot of different toys that we have on the in the toolbox, you could say, and we're going to constantly keep adding reviews like every week or every 2 weeks. So every time we have a new review, we're just going to continue to put out content that way on our YouTube channel. So it'll at least keep everyone fresh and interested in what we're doing.
Sure,
that's fantastic. Awesome. All right, and if there was any kind of at one place you had to say this is the most haunted location I've ever been to, it really maybe scared you, what would it be?
Well, there's been so many cases, and I'm going to say like the most recent case that we just did. Like we were at a place called Booby's Brewery, which is in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. And
Booby's
I can say,
wait, back it up.
I got to stop you there.
Yep, Booby's
Brewery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Every guy's doing 2 favorite things in life. Okay, in one place. Fantastic.
So we booked this investigation in May through our friends from Jotnex Paranormal, JOTT.NYX, like Jotnex, Melissa, and Jerry Keller. They were the paranormal directors at the brewery. Very nice people, and very much like one of my mentors in the field who I look up to. And we were there May 27th, 2022. And the night that we were there, we were in the ballroom area doing the investigation, and I could say I've captured some of the most incredible evidence of paranormal thermal pictures ever by any team that night. And I'll give you guys the links. You can put those up on your website. But the night that we were there, we're in the 3rd floor ballroom. Melissa was picking up on these 2 girls, and according to the history, that they had died in the 1900s, and they were named Ani and Tekla. And we actually captured their spirits basically the night we did the investigation at the brewery. And this actually, of course, Melissa was picking up on, she was spot on with the history. And she was, basically saying how, she was picking up on the history of the house. And was amazing was she had no knowledge of the original owner of Booby's Brewery. And the actual guy that bought it was a guy named Alois Booby. And then basically what was happening is that later that night we were in his bar area and we stretched out the tripwire EMF. And the whole light was going on like crazy, lighting up like multiple colors. And then the paralight was completely spiking. And then when Rick ran this ghost box, he was picking up a lot of stuff on that. And then when we went to go down the catacombs, this area, this actual location actually has catacombs, like a basement area that was kind of part of the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
And, is that what it was used for? To like hide slaves?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That was part of the Underground Railroad as well. And the night that we were there, it was wild. Rick was running a spirit box trying to see if we can, capture spirit voices on the ghost box. That thing was not working at all. Like it was malfunctioning left and right. But then when we went to take it up to the bar area, it was totally fine. And so for that to actually happen, like it could have been like, like you said, when you're downstairs, you might not get as clear of reception. The batteries might drain, or there might just not be a signal. It's kind of hard. I always try to find technical reasons why it wouldn't work. But
Jabunk, right?
Exactly. So what was
Yeah.
also interesting?
Sometimes things just break. They don't want you to use it. I think it's fascinating. They seem to have the ability to use any kind of device you have. It could be something as simple as dowsing rods or as complex as whatever kind of spirit box you want to come up with, wonder box, whatever.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem to matter. It just seems like it's just a matter of intent. And although
They
I
can
love
use the phone app.
giving more abilities, they can use applications, which I didn't believe in for a long time.
Right.
Although there's no way
I had one
that spirits can manipulate these
and what we're trying to
applications,
do is
but they do. It can happen.
We're actually big fans of the Ovilus because I know people say, well, the Ovilus, but if you can compare the mediumship readings and the Ovilus can pick up the same words. We've had that happen tonight at Booby Brewery where we're picking up certain words that were on the Ovilus that was matching Melissa's readings. That adds an incredible layer because the Ovilus is a device that uses the EMF fields to create words and responses. Usually we just turn it on all night and just run dictionary, let it run a dictionary mode all night. And the funny thing is about the Ovilus 5B, the newest one that Bill Chappell developed from basically digital dowsing, it actually has Dave's voice on it. Dave Schrader's. It's pretty cool. It has,
Is that right?
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. I haven't used the 5B, but we've used them before, and we've seen similar things where it turns up on another app or somebody's
at the same time
it describes something and it there it is. It's also saying it at the same time. We did that over the phone with some friends of ours.
Skype.
Yeah, it's somebody in Canada.
Somebody was in Canada, one was in Florida, and we had
Skype on our phone.
Yeah.
And, we were all getting a different gear and getting the same responses.
Yeah,
which was wild.
Yeah.
So you never know, how it can work.
Exactly.
But this brewery sounds amazing. Booby's Brewery.
Well, that was guys.
Hey,
You are just a wealth of knowledge of history.
You sure are.
Yeah,
you got
it's amazing.
A lot of history down, and it's been fantastic. I enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely. Finally.
I will post your links. I want people to check you guys out. It's Phantom Detectives, and you can find them at phantomdetectives.org. There's also quite a few other websites here. I'll mention them and we'll post them later. Afterlifefrequency.com, psychicmediumautumn.com, erc2explore.com, and of course, from Art Bell, darkmatternews.com.
Yes.
So this is a wonderful collection. You guys are like a powerhouse team. You seem really well rounded. Anything else you'd like to let our audience know where to find you?
Please.
The Ghost Hunt is world's largest ghost hunt, September 24th.
Yep. So if anybody's interested in watching that night or just getting general information on what the event is, it's largestghosthunt.com. So just the word largest and then ghosthunt.com. And there, you think you can see like all the teams. Unfortunately, I think they're no longer taking applications, but they probably take applications for the 23 when they update the website later this year. So basically, you can find all the information on how to do the event, how to apply for an application if you've got a team yourself, or if you just want to read about like what it all entitles. That website will give you everything you need to know about all the teams, all the locations, all that stuff.
Excellent.
Awesome. That's
excellent.
Wonderful.
Well, that's good news. So yeah, we'll look forward to that, and we look forward to talking to you again and having you back on and tell us about some more of your adventures, because it seemed numerous, very historical, love history.
Yes.
Its impact on all of us, and this has been great.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Stick around. We're just going to wrap things up, and I'll be right with you. Well, that's all the time we have left for today on Bigfoot and the Bunny. Happy Saturday. You guys enjoy the rest of your long Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
If you're in the U.S., I know they don't celebrate that everywhere, but if you're here and have a long weekend, enjoy the heck out of it. Stay safe, and we will see you guys next Thursday on Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.